busy.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting phenomenon. It's a new phenomenon too.
So so I don't know if you've ever seen it through glass.
No, that's really cool.
Um, but I don't know if you really how much you drink, but
You want to see my? I'll show you my mate. So let me pull these out.
I do want to come back to that. Sorry, I'm distracting you here.
No, no, this is cool.
By the way,
So
Alex, I'm Devin, as you can see now down here, because
Devin,
I
yeah,
realized that from the last time. Like, I actually don't know your name. Like, like
yeah, it's nice to meet
so.
you.
Yeah, you as well. So what
Yeah,
you got? What you got? Let me
I
see.
have this mate here, which is this like it's pretty.
That's
It
cool.
feels nice in the hand, solid wood.
Nice.
It's cool because it kind of like the mate will kind of like stain and
Yeah.
seal on the inside.
Uh-huh.
So I dig this one, and
Where
then
did
I
you
have
get that from?
from Jason from
Really?
Yerba. Yeah,
Cool.
he makes
So is
these.
it made out of the traditional wood or is that like just a regular
I think it's just
wood? Because it looks
there's a
like just a
specific type
regular
of
wood.
wood, but I don't think it has anything to do with Argentina or South America and their types of wood.
Yeah.
Um, but
It
it's
looks like it could be Palo Santo.
like the wood Palo Santo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you know that?
I do. I
Does
have
it
no idea.
smell? Okay. Those are
I
I don't
have
know. Those are my wife loves those
Palo
ones because of the
Santo
smell.
incense,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
smells.
Uh-huh.
And then he has a stainless steel one, which is similar like a wine cup. Um,
Yep.
but this works well for like you're traveling and you have a lid and all that stuff like that.
Yep. Those are great for beginners. It's actually something I wanted to kind of promote because I realize, okay, you can try to you got to find the balance between traditional
Mhm.
and like doable,
Functional
you know,
and modern.
functional, right? Because
Yeah.
I realize, okay, Americans, like, yeah, this may be the traditional way, excuse me,
Mhm.
but like, we don't, it's not a tradition here. It's not a cultural here.
Yeah.
It's adapted. So, like, that may be true, but it's also not practical. Like, I
Specs.
just
Yeah.
realized, like, my wife helped me realize, like, okay, you're not going to see an American like walking down the street carrying a thermos. You
Mhm.
know, it's not going to happen. Um, and if they are, it's just filled with like water, like one of these things.
Yeah. That's what I
Like
have here. Yeah.
going to the gym, right? They're not going to be, you know, pouring their mate drinking, right? Like
Mhm.
it's one of those things you're just either going to do it at home or you're going to have like a to-go cup or something like you got, right? I
Mhm.
mean, anyway, so all that to say is that, um, however, that one you do have like stainless steel, I do highly recommend,
Yeah.
because easy to clean, easy to transport. Like you drop it, nothing happens. You don't have to cure it, which the traditional ones you have to like cure, which
I think
means you have
that's
to
what I
like
was trying to say with
clean
this.
out the inside so that way it doesn't mold or that way it doesn't crack. It's really complicated. Well, it's not really complicated. It's complicated to people that
It's
don't know
a
what's going
practice and
on.
a discipline
Yeah.
that you have to adapt to. For
So
sure.
so it, like definitely highly recommend the stainless steel or glass or even plastic or ceramic or whatever.
Mhm.
The silicone like stuff is kind of popular too. But anywho, so yeah. But going back to the virtual thing.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you've thought about this, but it's something I saw someone else do, and it was like, wow, that's really cool and simple and like obvious now that you think about it. Like he was literally coaching on FaceTime.
Mhm.
Like in other words, just putting the other person just puts their phone where they can see him do the exercise
Yeah.
on they're just on a FaceTime call because everybody's got an iPhone basically, or do it on, whatever format. I mean, WhatsApp or something. Put it on FaceTime. Just put the, camera, do your exercise, and then, they coach them just as if I'm there watching you. Just yell over the phone. I guess, hey,
Yeah.
no, back straight,
Yeah,
or
do this or try this.
it's like, wow, like you could literally coach anywhere in the world now. Like
It's
you don't
pretty.
have to be in San Diego. You just a guy that's in San Diego, and hey, just show me a video or send me a video or we do it live or yeah, crazy. I don't know. Just
No, it's really cool, man. So what I'm trying to build right now has that built into it, but the meat and potatoes of it is it has a movement library or an exercise library.
mm,
So as the coach, I can create a program for you based off of like a goal, and then I pull from my movement library the types of exercises or things that you need relative to it, and you just follow along. And then once a month will be like a 30-minute coaching session where you just have access to unload questions or concerns or troubleshoot something, and then we have a real-time discussion on or demonstration on like whatever problems you're experiencing. So yeah, no, it's fascinating the kind of stuff you can do and the kind of value you can deliver. I have one client. He lives. I'm in Philadelphia. He lives in North Jersey. He's been one of the most interesting clients I've had. He's had like 8 back surgeries, all spine surgeries, from chronic pain and from disc degeneration, just from like abusing his body.
Sure.
So he's done all the PTs, done all the X, Y, and Z in the world, still in chronic pain, still at a 90-degree angle when he's walking around. And I've been able to coach him out of pain really effectively just on Zoom. And there are things, of course, that like I wish I could show him and do with him that I absolutely can't on the internet, but it seems like it's proven to be good enough, and that goes pretty far. But there's nothing that will ever replace, eyes on a person or hands on a person. That's the best thing to possibly experience.
For sure. Yeah. And that's kind of interesting point too, of like explaining things, teaching things, like the same is like, I'm making these videos of like showing people, and sometimes like you see someone do it on a video on YouTube. It's like, hold on, what, like, or whatever, like,
there's this that you have to like account for somehow. Yeah. It's really interesting.
And it's kind of funny because there's this big deal, somewhat, I'm go with me here, but like on Instagram, especially noticing in my realm of yerba mate that people make the tutorials of like, how to prepare and all this stuff. And there's a gazillion of them.
Yeah.
But everybody has their own like recipe. And then of course on Instagram, you don't see like the behind the scenes. Sometimes you just see like the finished product, and it's like, of course, all nice, shine and polished or whatever. But you don't realize like, well, they didn't actually just do this and pour water. Like, they, whatever, let it sit certain things. And so it's like, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know, that what I'm trying to say is that I guess the whole process is not ultimately very.
That's the thing. It's not attractive. Like the process is like what people roll their eyes about, or the boring part, or the stuff that doesn't sell, because people just want the pill.
The result.
They want the result.
Yeah.
And the process is boring. The process is just like ritual, routine, something that you're trying to download into your brain and be a new habit or be a new thing.
Yeah. Those that don't know, we talked about running specifically with me, so they didn't hear our conversation, our messages and stuff. So to go on the movement and stuff, like, I'm a big runner. I told you kind of my story. I'm trying to do a 60-mile fundraiser this summer, and that's like you said, like what's the process and all this kind of stuff. And it's like a lot of consistency, a lot of just running 4 or 5 miles 4 or 5 times a week, and that's it. There's no really secret sauce consistency. And like you said, it sounds really boring, and a lot of times it is. It's like, I want to just get up to like, this many miles, but it's like sometimes that takes like 12 to 16 weeks or longer. And I told you about this principle of time on your feet. In other words, it's not a speed, it's not a distance, it's literally time on your feet. Because and you obviously as a coach could probably explain this better than I understand it, but essentially you're going to get tired from just being on your feet more than you are your cardiovascular system, because it's going to reach a certain peak no matter where you're at. And so it's not really your cardiovascular it's going to really give out. It's just going to be your muscles and your brain of just like, just being exhausted of like, this is long and boring and sucks. Like, like your brain's telling you, just stop. Like, why are we doing this? Like, we're not chasing any deers or anything. So
exactly, that's the point.
what's this? What are you doing to us right now? So
Preservation and conservation of energy. They're the two things.
yeah, yeah.
I'll see you a meme on Instagram that my friend shared with me, and it's this like 4-panel comic strip, and it has
Is
like
it the dumb runner?
no, it's a
Oh,
bear
okay.
and a
Anyways,
wolf,
yeah.
a
Uh-huh.
bear and a wolf, and a bear is like looking at this guy, and he goes, "What's that apex predator doing?" And it just shows
Uh-huh.
a guy running, and then like a
Yeah,
fox comes in, and he goes, "Yeah, like what is he doing? Does he know he's supposed to be conserving energy?"
yeah,
And then they're like baffled by like why
yeah,
a person is running
yeah,
outside just for exercise or why he's running
yeah,
outside to do like as an activity.
yeah,
Nothing does that unless it absolutely needs to do it.
yeah,
And humans have reasoned to themselves a lot of things. But one thing is
yeah.
that exercise is necessary. And it's
Hmm.
not really. Physical activity is necessary.
Yeah.
Exercise is not.
Uh-huh.
And it's really interesting to like start playing with people's brains when you introduce that concept and like, even play with your own brain and question like, what is this motivation I have to exercise every day? Like I don't need to do that. I need to get up and move around, walk around. I need
Yeah.
to, you know,
Move it or lose it.
yeah, exactly. I need to make sure I'm not completely sedentary. But we never quote unquote evolved to exercise. We never. That's not in our biological blueprint. What is going out to make sure that we're fed and we're protected, and spending most of our time, even thinking back into our like ancient ancestors, we spend most of our time sitting around and conserving energy. So when we do go out, we have to face things that are pretty traumatic. We can handle it. So it's a really interesting thing the way um, all this type of culture in different ways developed. Even thinking about mate, like you have mateadas, right? Which is a culture of for like cowboys to like sit around and conserve energy, which is fascinating.
I guess so. I never really thought about it in that sense. I've thought about it as more of a kind of like the um, human, I don't know, need for community of sitting around the campfire telling stories. That's the human like connection of sitting around a campfire and telling stories, basically. And this is the campfire essentially. So you literally sit in a circle, at least in traditional sense, and that, like you said, like cowboy thing. Yeah.
It's really cool. No, it's fascinating, like how just as your environment dictates. Like in the beginning, we would all be sitting around like making stuff to make sure we can survive tomorrow, and
Hmm.
then certain needs got taken care of and processed to the point where like we don't need to do that as much. So
Hmm.
what's the next thing? We just spent all day riding around out in the sun. We're exhausted, right? I don't have to do anything for tomorrow to prepare. It's all done. Let's take a load off and tell
Hmm.
stories. So it's like it's this
Interesting.
evolution. What what this conservation of energy allows for,
Hmm.
and ultimately, in my opinion, I studied anthropology in college. In
Cool.
my opinion, what that is the conservation of energy allows for culture to be developed, and whatever form that takes depends on
Uh-huh.
the environmental factors. But beautiful things come out of that, man. Very, very, very beautiful things.
Is that like what you would consider the higher order, I guess, thinking when it's like you have this, okay, your basic needs, like the hierarchy of needs kind of thing, like basic needs are met. So now we can start talking about dreams and
Mhm.
visions and like higher level, like
Correct. Concerns.
desires, I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, concerns or whatever. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
basic needs are met. I'm not gonna die. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna,
I'm
survival
fed.
mode is
I can,
complete. So now
I
I
can,
can, you know, which
exactly.
is definitely, I think, personally,
Mhm.
I realize this, but still fight it. Um, and I think a lot of humans, especially, um, I I personally have my own theories
Yeah.
to what you like. Here's to yours, Americans especially, because from what I've heard is we are leading the world now in depression and all these other great things that we don't want. America's number one, yeah. So kicking ass, yeah. So uh, of because we're so individualistic, and now that we don't have any really need for survival because like everything can literally, you can sit in your house and literally have everything done, pay your bills, banking, have food delivered to you, groceries, pay your light bill. You literally don't need to leave your seat
Mhm.
for, weeks even. I
Yeah.
mean, other than maybe get up and use the toilet, and that's about it, like,
Sometimes you don't
um,
even have to. You have
and
a
even if you're
toilet
just,
door.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sit on the toilet, do your work, and literally there's a faucet right next to you, just pour water, hey, you're good. Um, so yeah, like this whole, like all the basic survival stuff's been taken care of for, I guess you could say centuries now, but now
Mhm.
to the fact that where there's not even a necessary to even walk to the grocery store,
Mhm.
um, then there's no need, like there's no movement at all.
Correct.
So it's like your brain and everything's just disconnected and you're not connecting with each other, and so therefore, like, I don't know, I guess everything's screwed up. But
No, it's interesting,
that's,
like
I don't know.
how you bring in this idea of connection and community and things like that. And I think our generation. How old are you, by the way?
35 now. I had to think
32.
about it for a second. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, it seems like our generation um, is
And
in
then
this
I'm screwed it all up, the
transition.
millennials. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we're in this transition area
Uh-huh.
where we have the tool that is the internet, and we're responsible for laying a baseline out of what it can do potentially.
Mm,
And to me, the first thing, if I was in charge of the committee of the internet, I'd be like, the main thing we should use this for is for communication purposes, how to connect with others, make a more global network of how people can work together. Still, we still want autonomy because autonomy is important, but like, how do we leverage it to connect more, right? Just like something that would sitting around a campfire would do,
mm-hmm,
or sharing mate.
mm-hmm,
But it seems like a lot of people just like push that aside because again, it's kind of taken care of already as like a basic need to a degree. It doesn't account for depression like you described, but they kind of take it for granted. Let's say they take the
mm-hmm.
opportunity to connect with people and use this incredible invention that is the internet.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm just gonna look up the sports score today, and like, you
Yeah.
can talk to anybody on the planet and do so many things, and you're just using it to look up the football game, like.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do the same thing. It's
Just
very.
ask questions that you don't need
Yeah,
to
you
know
don't
the
need
answer to,
to.
like Google
Yeah,
random junk,
yeah.
because it's like I don't know what else to think about or do right now because
Mhm.
I've got so much free time, and well, people will say they're always busy. That's the typical lame excuse for any American, I think.
I agree.
Uh, but it's like you're not busy, you're just occupied or whatever. Like, I don't know. Anywho,
You're.
I guess all that to say is like um, realizing that I'm not having to survive. So it's like now I'm just in this struggle of like wanting to do something, I guess drastic or whatever, but there's no need to. And then also like, to shake things up a little bit, or like what's beyond this, this kind of stuff. Like, okay, I got the basic needs now what? Because you just got this extra energy you're not using basically or whatever. I don't know.
Yes, yes.
So maybe that's why I'm doing such a, because everybody's like, that's crazy, all that much running. It's like, oh, I mean, not doing any, I'm literally sitting at a desk most of the day, so I don't
Hmm.
know.
No, and that's
I'm
the thing
fighting my
too.
own system.
I experience this with a lot of people. Like, so my number one client type are like overachievers and high performers. And they're the people I relate to the most and have the most experience working with. Um,
Yeah. It's
and
the kind of
I,
people you want to work with, right? That are want to do something, take action as a coach, right?
yeah,
Because
but the
the
thing
worst
is,
people are the ones that you can't motivate, no matter how much you tell them what to do, right?
I mean, that they're a different, they're for a different person to have their type of patience with. It's not for me. Um,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
way like a lot other people work with people like that, and they're just incredibly patient. They know how to
Gotcha.
ride the wave with them. I get impatient with those types of
Yeah.
people.
Hmm.
I don't get it. I just can't relate. Um,
Yeah.
but a lot of people I work with, they like to, like what I say, swing the pendulum. I remember this one client I had a long time ago. She was in chronic pain, chronic neck pain, and she went to there's a hospital in Camden called Rothman, And she went there to get all these tests done by all these doctors, went to physical therapy, and no one would help with her neck pain. And I was like, let's just talk, see what's going on. Like, what do you do? And she goes, oh, well, I work like 45 to 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
Got it. I strength and cardio train Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then I do yoga Tuesday, Thursday. And then I just go out for like about like a 12-mile run every Sunday. I'm like, all right. So everything you do is at this end of the spectrum exclusively. There's no break or time for yourself or your nervous system to kind of like balance itself out and redistribute the cortisol you're experiencing day in and day out. A thing the body does when it experiences that is fire off pain signals. And everybody has their own way of experiencing that. Like people can clench their jaws, they can tighten their necks, squeeze their butts. There's ways of doing that, right? But over time, if you're not aware of it and you have no relationship to it, it becomes a chronic condition and it's like in there. So I never got to work with her, but I was like, listen, the first thing I would do if you have pain to this degree and you're doing all these things is I would just take a break and I would stop training and do something you enjoy. And she didn't like to hear that. She was like, no, I need to do this and I need to do that and I need to achieve this and I need to reach this goal. And it just wasn't a match for us at that point in time, which is fine. But it's so fascinating when like doing nothing and relaxing is not even an option for people. Like sitting back, drinking mate and just like having the experience of like the flavor in your mouth isn't even a thing. It's like, I need to go to Dunkin', I need to get a coffee, I need to drink it as fast as possible. America runs on Dunkin', and I need to go to work. You know what I mean?
It. Like I don't have time to re-pour this thing. Put it in a can and for me. Which
put the mate in a glass jar, put a little mint in it, and then I got clean energy, and now I'm ready to go. Now I'm ready to go to work. Now I'm ready to push through the second half of the day. There's this competitive attitude. It's pretty crazy.
It's pretty crazy. I was dialoguing or thinking through this with my wife the other day, actually. She's from Argentina, so there's lots of times we talk about the different cultures, similarities, very similar but also very different, and how America, we need everything now.
Yes.
The fact that like we don't really need it, like the economy, I feel, dictates that, and I think it might be from World War II of like, hey, we got to rebuild this empire ASAP or something, so get to work. And then like the internet just pushed that further to where like now you're expecting everything within 5 minutes, to the fact that you expect it from everyone else because it's expected from you. Like, hey, I need this thing on my report like yesterday, and then you order food and like, hey, I need it now and I can't wait 5 minutes because I got to get back to work in 30 minutes and do this thing for my boss. And so we treat everybody just like machines or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Just that was the interesting thing, because I've lived and worked and traveled like 22 countries. So got the different experiences of how things like, at least as an American, you get to this other country and it's like, man, everything is like so backwards. You feel, right? Or they move so slow, like nothing is ever getting done here. I don't know. It's just
the pace of life is just dramatically different. Yeah. I've experienced that recently too, where like I forget what particular country. I think it was China. I'm like, China is like a world superpower for sure, but like I've never been to China. I have a background in Chinese martial arts, so I'm very interested in China. But like, just from seeing things on the internet or TV or wherever, you're like, there's a lot of people there and it's not really developed and it seems like it's struggling for a world superpower. And then you like, China's like struggling. Then you look at the United States, you're like, the United States isn't doing much better in any way, like infrastructure wise, healthcare wise, social policy wise. It's doing all right. But it's like this fake standard that you hold things to in your mind because you're from there. Nobody's got it figured out. Everybody's trying to do their version of the same thing, and it's where it's at. You know what I mean? But yeah, this fake idea of like self-importance. I've learned something to your point about the World War II thing. Just working with people and being in corporate America and running away from as fast as I can. A lot of people treat other people as either assets or liabilities.
Hmm.
How can I leverage your existence to help me make my life easier or push you away and
Hmm.
not? And how do I compete to be the best person here? So I stand out and I get all the recognition and resources when nobody else should. It's very capitalistic, is what my point is.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with capitalism. I
Sure.
engage
I
in it.
live off of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But um, people don't have boundaries of like humanity and an
Yeah,
ideology. It's like they are very quick to get consumed by it. You know what I mean?
for sure. No.
It's interesting.
Um, it's something I think about pretty rarely, regularly. Sorry, not rarely, regularly, about how to build kind of authentic community and be, authentically human.
Yeah, man.
Because I've believed it myself in my own lives, working kind of a corporate world of like presenting this professional image that no one gives a crap. Like, or at least I don't know. I just realized I'm looking through my own facade. Like, man, I don't even believe what I'm presenting right now. Just
Interesting. That's
uh,
really interesting.
I don't know, because it's, I guess, just without giving everything, but like, you know, uh, was in the my supervisor position that I'm in
Hmm.
of managing people and stuff, you know, for probably about almost 7 years. So I was always younger than a lot of my colleagues.
Hmm.
So then it was always this unsaid, I guess, of like, my boss is, 10 years younger than me, right? It's like, or whatever. And so that kind of thing. It's like, can't be a goofy kid, I got to be oh, I'm looking for the director. It's like, hi, like,
Gotta play a role
but
for sure.
yeah, so,
That's really interesting,
uh,
man.
but that's my own, I guess, deal. But
I
just
mean,
realized that other people do that, like where we were talking about it with another friend about how like nobody's friends with their coworkers. Like you just see them, you work with them 40 hours, but you don't know anything about them other than their first name,
yeah.
Um, so
No, this is my own personal belief, and I um, look around for it to see if it's true or not. I always try to like test my own theories. But if our generation has any sort of karma that we have to kind of reconcile, it's understanding and learning boundaries and using them effectively in all different parts of life, especially in work relationships. Like how somebody can
you
just
think that's where we're the most toxic? Work?
I wouldn't use the word toxic. I think that's where we're the most deficient.
There we go. Maybe if you want to be a little more politically correct, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I use the term toxic to describe things, but I never thought of it that way. I just thought of it as a
Deficient then, yeah.
deficient. Yeah,
Lacking.
just not good at it. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
not a skill, and I see it as a skill. And
Do you think it has anything to do with World War II? If the
I think it has to go back to the capitalist idea I just described, where it's like
capitalist? Okay.
if,
I was
if we're,
curious as a millennial or as co-millennial, being that the work culture was kind of set by baby boomers to where now those things don't apply anymore.
Yeah.
But yet all the baby boomers haven't completely left yet. So therefore millennials are just fighting against the baby boomers.
Right.
And then when we take over, all the Gen Z will be fighting against us. Like, why are these idiots?
That's cool,
Yeah.
That's why progress happens, But if we have anything to learn, like going back to the boundaries thing, it's like we need to say like no if they're asking you to work 60 hours and you're not seeing any more money. You're just doing it because you feel guilty or you feel like you're going to lose your job and there's some sort of threat, and that you're reinforcing the threat in your mind to stay competitive. Like that's toxic. That's toxic behavior.
For sure.
But like, I think it has to come down from the thing I'm sure you were taught, just like I was taught when we were going into college or even going into high school. It's like different groups of society have different ways of expressing this and experiencing it, but it's like you have to put the work in, put your head down and grind so everyone sees how valuable you are, and then they'll maybe give you an opportunity to rise up the ladder or walk up the ladder or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm gonna do it, and then you're never really succeeding to the degree that you think you could. It's just like wasting time almost, right? And you're sacrificing your humanity, in my opinion. You're sacrificing your humanity for this story that's being fed to all of us of compete, climb up the ladder, succeed, acquire as many resources as possible, and then you retire at 60 to be too old and too tired and burn out to really enjoy life at all. And then you live off the government. It sucks.
Yeah.
Right?
I definitely agree, and I've kind of been a little rebel without a cause for probably, I don't know, since high school or something.
For sure.
Kind of doing some things just because. No, I don't know. What if I don't do that? What if I do this instead? So I guess what I'm saying is, like, I changed my major from civil engineering to Spanish, which is always a safe bet. I was like, what are you gonna do with Spanish? You just be a Spanish teacher? Like, no, like there's other stuff. I don't know what it is, but I can do more than that, And then because it's like civil engineering, that's a safe, job and market and everything. And it's like, no, I don't like this. This sucks. So that, and then I kind of just was traveling the world and doing all the retirement stuff, at 20 instead of going into corporate world. And then so kind of did the retirement early, and then now it's like, oh, now I gotta actually get to work and provide for a family now. So it's like, unfortunately, I kind of put myself in the rat race, whatever. But yeah.
But being able to be a person that can provide for their family, that's a really cool feeling and a really cool experience.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna change that for anything, but yeah, I think that's our duty as men, I would say, and take it for whatever you want. But as a man, I feel like I should be leading my family, and I don't mean that at anything against any feminism or anything, but as the man, I feel that if you're not taking the lead and providing for your family, I feel like that's our innate personality or whatever. But also sometimes stuff does suck and sacrifices are made, and work doesn't always be fun, but that doesn't mean it's not purposeful. Like,
I agree, man.
Sometimes you got to do the things because you got to do them, and it's not all flowers and rainbows, But,
I 1,000,000% agree. There's value. So there's this you should check this out. I think it's pretty cool. There's this book, but it's also a cognitive model and a philosophy that kind of is the step beyond Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And it's called spiral dynamics. And it's this model that discusses, it's used primarily for conflict resolution. But it's this model that kind of puts different stages of human thought development on the spectrum, and how they interrelate, how they connect, how they clash, and different characteristics and features of each one individually.
Spiral dynamics. Yeah. Do you know the author?
I forget the author, but the creator is Claire Graves.
Claire Graves.
And you write down Don Beck too, because you might be a creator or co-author. I forget. The book's like, it's a toe breaker. You can read about it. But you can go on YouTube and watch a million creative, fun videos on it and stuff like that too.
Yeah. Something I haven't heard, believe it or not. Yeah. I have my long to-do read list as well.
Yeah.
Kind of a book nerd, but yeah.
No, but it's a fantastic model. It's a fantastic thing to look into and just be able to get like insight into like not the way people are, because humans are incredibly complex. It's not the way necessarily people think, but it gives you a framework to kind of be like, oh, I can be more compassionate, more empathetic, and see the world a little bit better through somebody else's perspective rather than just my own.
Yeah.
And I use it often. If I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, all right, like, let me just generally throw a framework around this. So like my brain can kind of conceptualize how to communicate with them better, more effectively. It's really cool. But back to what you're saying about being a man and providing and stuff like that is something I also subscribe to, and I believe in that. Two things I always think of, because I have a background in martial arts and I also have a background in anthropology. Providing and protecting is another thing. Whether or not we're effective at it, whether or not we subscribe to it, whether or not it's accessible for us for whatever reason, it's still in there to consider, and there's still some sort of cultural action people take to do these things, and they could manifest in different ways.
No bears, but
Yeah.
But there's still threats to
Threats,
your family or society or survival. Yeah.
And there's value to like the way boomers see the reality is that's I think why I brought up spiral dynamics, because they see things where like sometimes you do just have to put your head down and grind and work. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily your whole identity. It's not necessarily your whole life. It's a part of it that is necessary to do in order to provide or protect.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to disengage and detach from it once in a while to like balance yourself back out. And that's, I think, going back to the boundaries thing, that's where people get stuck. They forget that boundary exists because it's not exercised regularly. And just like a muscle, it atrophies, and then it's hard to
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, great point. Because I definitely believe this in movement. I'd be curious on your thoughts, but it's the same with movement, right? If you don't move it or lose it, like it atrophies. Like, so for example, I just like was meh for the last month, basically in February, and didn't really run anything. It was cold, it was raining. I just didn't really have any motivation. So then like I started back like this week of kind of really be more consistent, and I realized like how much like out of shape, like it's like, man, this is not as easy as it was before. And it wasn't like my physical condition, like it's not like I quit for a year. It was like just literally maybe a couple weeks max, but it's already like the movement, like getting that, it's like a rock getting moss on it, or whatever.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, conditioning and endurance are the first two things to go, and they go fast. They go real fast. They call it days. If you don't do anything, like hoops,
yeah,
I did judo
because that's why I felt like just a week or two, and it was already like, what the heck? Like,
I did judo is one of my martial
days,
arts, and it's a super competitive, explosive sport. And I'll take a week off because like I got injured somehow, right?
Yeah.
And I'll go back the next week. I'm like, all right, here we go. I'm like, I'm dead. I can't run. I can't explode. I can't pull as hard as I could. Like, it goes away fast. But it's cool though, because when you have that experience, you're like, oh, that's exactly what I need to work towards and sustain to a degree. You want to sustain it in a healthy way. You want to sustain it over a longer period of time, rather than just in this little window where you, like I said, swing the pendulum, get hurt, get knocked on your ass. Swing the pendulum, fight real hard, get hurt, get on your ass, because you're not making progress. You're just kind of staying in these boundaries. So going to like what I do for a living, I help people design movement practices that look at that from kind of like a zoomed out way, where they're like, oh, I can't be an animal and train until my body breaks down, and then start from scratch again because I'm not going anywhere. I'm just staying in that bracket. Instead, looking at it from in a more sustainable way, and learning how your body moves mechanically, organically, in an athletic way where you're getting better results. Results being more stamina, better sleep, more recovery, things like that. And it has to do with, honestly, it doesn't have anything to do with exercise. It has to do with just being physically active regularly. and what that experience is like.
And that was what I was going to ask you. Are there certain go-tos that you normally, not to say that everything's generic or whatever, but generally speaking, that you usually recommend for people, to do that, whatever that looks like?
So this is what's interesting. That's a really cool question. Um, Chinese Kung Fu is my number one reference in my mind. All things movement, sports, physical activity, all that stuff. It's the number one thing the
For
lens
yourself.
for everything.
Uh-huh.
It's what I know best. It's what I have
Gotcha.
the experience with, and it's given me a lot of insight into a lot of things. And
Okay.
to answer your question, I'm not really prescriptive with
Sure.
exercise, movement patterns, things like that. What I learned from Chinese martial arts is once you get to a point of just training, and I think this is again my opinion and through my experience, the way I don't know about Asians as a whole, but Chinese people communicate is that they're very abstract and conceptual. And I've studied Chinese in college, and the way you kind of have to like move your brain to be able to speak is pretty conceptual and pretty abstract as well. So it would only make sense that the way their mind works, their body works, or the way their things work, it has some sort of influence that way. So the way my teacher taught me and the way I learned is through principles and concepts. So he goes, here, like this is how you do this move here. That's what it looks like. All right. So as a Westerner, I would just copy the move because that is what he's doing and therefore correct. And then you do that over and over again, but then you get better. So you see it from a different angle. You're like, oh, you weren't doing that the whole time. You're doing this nuanced thing. Like, what the hell is that? And he goes, oh, well, I'll tell you. It's this. And you're like, all right. And then you repeat that. And then there's something else. And you're like, what's that? So the rabbit hole goes on forever. And then if you get exhausted from asking, what's that, what's that, what's that, what's that, because there's always a different answer, you start to look at it more completely as a principle. Like, I'm just trying to get from point A to point B and put this in somebody's face. That's it. You're like, that's so easy. Like, I can do that right now. It's like, yeah, that's the whole point, is that you want the principle, the concept of what this thing is expressing itself as to be the main thing you refer to with your body, with your brain. And then if you understand the principle, you can do anything. There's no rules. You just paint, you just draw, you just move. And your mind isn't in a state of trying to be logical. It's not going to hesitate. It's not going to second guess itself or have conflict with the decision. It just does. And that's when the body's most effective. So as a martial artist, you're the most effective. There's no hesitation. And that's from training by erasing all of these steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3. I am a good mover. Step 1, step 2, step 3. I did it well. I got graded well. Good. Step 1. And it's all these mechanical parts that it's not real. It's a way to understand and learn something. And they're boxes. And they're valuable. There's value to them, absolutely. But at the end of the day, you have to throw all that away and just do it. What's in a judo competition? I just posted a story. You can check it out of me winning one of my matches. Like, there's judo is one of the most technical things I've ever done. It's the most challenging thing I've ever done. I'm still a novice with it. But with all the technicalities, with all the sports angling, like, oh, he did this, counter it with this. And like, you hear that on sports all the time. Like, oh, if he does this, you counter it, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, you just go in and you fight to win. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Knock him down. That's the goal. Yeah. How you do it, I don't care. Just don't hurt him, but knock him down.
Yeah.
And when you're that free,
there's a million steps you can do, but at the end of the day, it's win, right?
It's just win. Yeah. Even with running, it's like you're trying to run 60 miles, which is insane to me. Like I couldn't even possibly, right? But there's all these techniques. People write books, articles, strategies, optimize, do this, all that stuff, right? Million things. At the end of the day, you're just trying to go from point A to point B.
At the end of the day, it's 60 miles. It doesn't matter what you cut it, slice it, what you use, crawl, jump, skip,
There. That's it. So like thinking of the terms of the principle, like what is the one
That's a
concept?
great analogy. Thanks for helping me wrap my brain around that.
No problem. But the principle I would use to filter exercises or a movement practice,
Yeah.
um, extract a movement practice, say, from this goal
Hmm.
this is the way I designed everything. Everything is based on locomotion or the ability for a person to walk or transport
Hmm.
themselves from point A to point B.
Gotcha.
And if you understand
Whatever
the
that looks like for them is move, basically.
move,
However you do it. Yeah.
yeah,
To move
and
in a
then
healthy way. Yeah.
correct, and there are frameworks and patterns to put in a box first, so you
For
can be like,
certain
oh,
things. Yeah.
this is what this does. Got it. This is what this does. Got it. This is good, right? But you can't stay attached to it, and you can't let that define how you walk around the world, because then you're not a human. You're a robot trying
Yeah.
to.
Do the same thing over and over. Yeah.
Yeah. So, using locomotion, using using walking mechanics, using gait mechanics, using things like that to
Sure.
give what you're doing a framework.
Sure.
It's not perfect, but it's the closest thing to what we do best.
Yeah.
And that's it. So like
Nice.
that's the kind of way I design these things. That's the kind of framework I use. The end of the day, my goal for all of my clients and my goal for myself is that I don't want to depend on my brain, and I don't want clients to depend on personal trainers or other people.
Yeah.
Tell them how
Figure
to
it out
do it.
yourself, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
What
So when
works
you're
for you,
running
which
60 miles, you're like, I got this because it's 60 miles. I trained for it. I trust myself. I feel pretty good. I can't believe I'm doing this because a billion people wouldn't even consider doing it. Like
Mhm.
it's enough. It's enough gas in the tank, I think, to get you pretty far.
Yeah. Cool, man. Alex, it's been a pleasure, and I hope we can maybe do something like this again. I'm really trying to get build this community of like having this kind of cool discussions and stuff. And my
I would
day's
love.
just been the campfire, like you said, or we talked about. So
Mhm.
it's just given me this cool opportunity to connect with a bunch of um, new friends on the internet. So um, where can people find more about you, Alex? I know got you on Instagram. Is there other channels or things you want to shout out?
I think right now the most effective would be Instagram. Instagram handle is
Okay.
without the hero.
Hmm.
I'm trying to build that up as much as possible, and then moving on to things like online training with an online program. And I'm trying
So
to
we'll be
see,
on the lookout for that then.
yeah, and I'm just trying to see how people respond to it because people have really creative ways of explaining what you think you're saying back to you, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Same here. Well, Alex, I'll let you get back to whatever you were doing,
Yeah,
and hope to talk to you soon. And thanks for giving me this time and opportunity. I really do appreciate
same.
um, like you reaching out and connecting with you. Um, and of course, I'll keep you and everyone else updated as far as in the summer what that looks like if anybody's interested. But I do want